My name is Elena Marsh and I'm 29 years old. June 8th was supposed to be my younger brother's triumphant graduation celebration. His master's degree in business, paid for entirely by our parents, celebrated at the most exclusive rooftop venue in the city. What my family didn't know as they handed me that red wristband and laughed at my humiliation was that I owned every square foot of the building they were standing in. And in exactly 3 hours I was going to make sure they never forgot it. But before I tell you how 114 guests watched my family get escorted out of my property by security, let me explain the 29 years of being invisible that led to this moment. Because this wasn't about one wristband. This was about a lifetime of being treated like I didn't exist while my younger brother, Derek, was worshipped like he'd invented oxygen. Growing up as the oldest child should have meant something. Should have meant responsibility, respect, being the example. In my family it meant being the practice child. The one my parents made all their mistakes on before Derek came along and they figured out how to parent correctly. Derek is 3 years younger than me, but you'd think he was royalty the way my parents treated him. When I was 7 and brought home straight A's on my report card, my father glanced at it and said, "Good. That's what we expect." When Derek brought home B's at age 7, my parents threw him a pizza party and told everyone their son was academically gifted. When I was accepted into college at 17 with a partial scholarship, my parents said I'd have to take out loans for the rest. "It'll teach you responsibility," my mother explained. "You need to learn the value of money." I graduated with $67,000 in student debt. When Derek got into college 3 years later with no scholarship at all, my parents paid his entire tuition, $186,000 over 4 years, and bought him a car, a laptop, and a fully furnished apartment near campus. "Derek has so much potential," my mother would say. "We want to make sure he can focus on his studies without financial stress." When I asked why they couldn't help with my loans, my father actually laughed. "You're doing fine, Elena. You don't need help. Derek needs more support to reach his potential." The pattern continued through every stage of our lives. I worked 3 jobs through college and graduated with honors. Derek partied his way through undergrad with a 2.8 GPA. I got a job at a tech startup making $52,000 a year and my parents' only comment was, "That's nice, dear." Derek got an entry-level position at our father's friend's company making $45,000 and my parents acted like he'd been appointed CEO of Google. But here's what they never knew, never asked about, never cared enough to discover. I had a talent for technology and investment that made me very, very good at making money. That tech startup I joined at 22? I wasn't just an employee. Within 6 months, I'd identified inefficiencies in their product development that could save millions. I wrote a detailed proposal, presented it to the founders, and they promoted me to product director at 23 with equity in the company. When the startup was acquired by a major tech corporation 3 years later, my equity payout was $2.8 million. I was 26 years old and a multimillionaire, and my parents had no idea. They were too busy celebrating Derek's promotion to senior associate at his company, a title change with a $3,000 raise that my mother announced to our entire extended family like he'd won the Nobel Prize. I took my $2.8 million and did what I do best. I made it grow. I invested in 3 more tech startups, consulted for companies on product development and digital transformation, and bought my first commercial property, a small office building that I renovated and leased to tech companies. By 28, my portfolio was worth $8.7 million. I owned 4 commercial properties, had equity in 7 companies, and worked as a private consultant making more in a month than Derek made in a year. I lived in a penthouse downtown, drove a Tesla, and had built a life that would have made my parents proud, if they'd ever bothered to ask about it. But they didn't ask. They never asked. At family dinners, they'd spend 2 hours discussing Derek's latest achievement, and then turn to me with, "And you're still at that tech company, right?" I'd left 4 years ago. I'd say, "Actually no, I consult now," and they'd nod vaguely and change the subject back to Derek. The Skyline Tower had been my most recent acquisition. 8 months ago I'd purchased the entire building, a 12-story mixed-use property in the heart of downtown, for $3.1 million. The ground floor housed retail, floors 2 to 10 were office space, floor 11 was a high-end event venue, and the rooftop on floor 12 was the most sought-after party space in the city, with panoramic views of the entire city skyline. I'd kept the existing property management team, including Thomas, the building manager who'd worked there for 12 years. The revenue from leases alone was $780,000 annually, but the rooftop venue was the crown jewel, booking out months in advance for weddings, corporate events, and celebrations. When Derek announced he was getting his master's degree in business, paid for by our parents naturally, I knew exactly what would happen. My mother started researching venues immediately, complaining loudly at Sunday dinners about how impossible it was to find somewhere worthy of Derek's achievement. The Skyline Tower rooftop would be absolutely perfect, she sighed one evening. But they're booked for the next 6 months. I've called them 12 times. I'd smiled and said nothing. The Skyline Tower rooftop wasn't booked for June 8th. I'd deliberately kept it open. I wanted to see exactly how my family would behave when they got what they wanted. 3 weeks later, my mother called me, practically screaming with excitement. Elena, the most amazing thing happened. The Skyline Tower had a cancellation for June 8th. We got the rooftop for Derek's graduation party. What she didn't know was that I'd had Thomas call her back personally and offer the cancelled date. I'd also instructed him not to mention ownership, just to handle everything professionally and accept their deposit. My parents had wired $127,000 total. $87,000 for the venue, premium catering, open bar and entertainment, plus a $40,000 deposit for Derek's future wedding reception they'd already started planning. If you're genuinely enjoying this story, I'd love for you to hit that like button, but only if it's resonating with you. No pressure at all. Derek's actual graduation ceremony was on June 7th. I attended, sitting in the back row while my parents sat front and center, filming everything like Derek was receiving the Presidential Medal of Freedom instead of a master's degree that thousands of people earn every year. After the ceremony, my mother grabbed me. Elena, we need to talk about tomorrow. The party. Yes. Now we've spent a considerable amount of money making this perfect for Derek. We need you to understand that this is his day. His achievement. We can't have any complications. Complications, I repeated flatly. My father joined us, his hand on Derek's shoulder like he was guarding a priceless artifact. What your mother means is that Derek has worked incredibly hard for this. We want everything to be perfect. We need you to be supportive and not draw attention to yourself. Derek was scrolling through his phone, barely listening. When he finally looked up, he said, "Just don't embarrass me, Elena. This is a big deal for me and you're kind of, I don't know. You don't really fit with the crowd I'm trying to impress." "The crowd you're trying to impress," I said. "Yeah. These are important business contacts, potential employers, investors. They're high-level people. You work in tech support or whatever, right?" I'd been a consultant for 4 years. I told him at least 10 times. Something like that. My mother nodded enthusiastically. "Exactly. So tomorrow just stay in the background. Be pleasant. Don't talk about yourself or your job. This isn't about you." I smiled. Of course. Whatever Derek needs. The next morning, Derek sent me a text. "Party starts at 6. Don't be late. And dress appropriately, business formal. Try not to look poor." I stared at that text for a full minute. Try not to look poor. I had $8.7 million in assets and he was telling me not to look poor. I chose my outfit very carefully. A tailored charcoal suit from a designer boutique. $3,400, but understated enough that it wouldn't draw attention. Diamond earrings that had cost $12,000. Louboutin heels. I looked every bit the successful businesswoman I was, but nothing flashy. Nothing that would upstage Derek's big day. I arrived at the Skyline Tower at 5:45 p.m. Thomas saw me come in and his eyebrows rose slightly. I gave him a tiny shake of my head. "Not yet." He nodded and went back to directing the setup crew. The rooftop looked stunning. My parents had spared no expense. String lights created a canopy of light over the space. The bar was fully stocked with premium liquor. The catering tables were laden with expensive hors d'oeuvres. A DJ was setting up in the corner. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the sunset over the city skyline. My mother was already there, directing staff like a general commanding troops. She saw me and frowned slightly, looking me up and down. "Elena, you're early. I wanted to make sure I could help if you needed anything." How thoughtful. Her tone suggested it was anything but. "Actually, Derek has a special check-in system tonight. Very professional. Very organized. You need to get your wristband. Wristband. She pointed to a table near the entrance where Derek stood with a young woman holding a tablet and a box of wristbands. There was a line of early arrivals, professionally dressed people who were clearly Derek's colleagues, classmates and networking contacts. I joined the line and watched. Each person gave their name, was checked off a list, and received a white wristband that read VIP guest in gold letters. They were directed into the party with warm smiles. When I reached the front of the line, Derek looked up from his phone. Name. Derek, it's me. Name, he repeated, not looking up. Elena Marsh. The young woman with the tablet scrolled through her list. I don't see an Elena Marsh on the VIP list. Derek finally looked at me. Oh right, Elena. Yeah, you're on the alternate list. He reached into the box and pulled out a red wristband. It was noticeably different from the white ones, cheaper material, and instead of VIP guest, it read General Attendance in black letters. What's this? I asked calmly. It's your wristband. Everyone gets one. Security needs to know who's who. Security needs to know who's who, I repeated. Yeah. White wristbands are for VIPs. Business contacts, important guests, family. Red wristbands are for everyone else. And I'm everyone else. Derek shrugged. I mean, you're my sister, but you're not really part of the professional networking aspect of tonight. This is about my business future. The red wristband just means you're here to support me, not to, network or whatever. People were gathering behind me in line, listening to every word. I could feel their eyes on me. Put it on, Derek said, holding out the wristband. You're holding up the line. I took the red wristband. The material felt cheap compared to the white ones. I fastened it around my wrist while at least 15 people watched. Derek had already moved on to the next person in line. Name. Jonathan Ashford. Ah, Mr. Ashford. Great to see you. Derek's entire demeanor changed, warm, enthusiastic. He personally handed Jonathan a white VIP wristband. Thanks so much for coming. Please head right in. Bars open. I walked into the party wearing my red wristband like a scarlet letter. By 6:30 p.m., the rooftop was packed with 114 guests. I counted them. Exactly 114 people, and as far as I could tell, I was the only one wearing a red wristband. Everyone else had white VIP bands. I stood near the windows, sipping champagne and watching the sunset, trying to stay inconspicuous just like my family wanted. Elena. I turned to find my Aunt Rachel, my mother's sister, approaching with a confused look on her face. What's with the red wristband, honey? Before I could answer, my mother materialized beside us. Oh, that's just Derek's organizational system. Very clever, really. Helps him keep track of different guest categories. Different categories? Aunt Rachel looked at the white wristband on her own wrist. What category am I? Your VIP family, of course. My mother smiled brightly. The white wristbands are for important guests. And the red one means? My mother's smile tightened. General attendance. People who are here to support Derek but aren't really part of his professional circle. Aunt Rachel looked between my mother and me, understanding dawning on her face. You gave Elena a different wristband than the rest of the family? Derek organized the system, my mother said quickly. It's his party. His rules. Now if you'll excuse me, I need to check on the catering. Aunt Rachel stared at me for a long moment. Elena, It's fine, I said calmly. Really. It's Derek's day. But it wasn't fine, and it was about to get worse. At 7 p.m. my father gathered everyone for photos. Family photo time, he announced. Everyone with a white wristband whose actual family, gather around Derek. People shuffled into position. My parents flanked Derek. Aunts, uncles, cousins, all wearing white wristbands, arranged themselves around him in a semicircle. The photographer positioned himself, adjusting his camera. I started to move toward the group. Elena, what are you doing? My father's voice cut through the chatter. Family photo, I said. Red wristbands aren't in this shot. This is for VIP family only. Derek's specific request. 114 people were watching. 114 people heard my father tell me I wasn't VIP family. Derek didn't even look at me. He was busy adjusting his tie and making sure he was centered in the frame. You can stand over there. My mother pointed to a spot 15 feet away outside the camera's frame. You'll still be here. Just not in the photo. I walked to where she pointed. I stood there wearing my red wristband watching my entire family pose for photos without me. The photographer took 47 shots. I counted each one. Guests were whispering. I heard snippets. Is that his sister? Why isn't she in the photos? The red wristband, I heard someone say it means she's not important enough. That's harsh. After the family photos, Derek called for VIP guests only photos. Business contacts, mentors, important friends. Then college friends photos. Then colleagues photos. I wasn't in any of them. At 7:45 p.m., Derek gave a speech thanking everyone for coming. He thanked the venue for their incredible service and stunning space. He thanked his parents for their unwavering support and financial investment in my education. He thanked his professors, his classmates, his mentors, his friends. He didn't mention me once. At 8 p.m., my mother was showing off photos on her phone to a group of guests. Look at our family. All together to celebrate Derek's achievement. I could see the photos from where I stood. Every single one had me cropped out or positioned outside the frame. My mother had made sure of it. One of her friends noticed me standing alone. Is that Derek's sister? Why isn't she in any of the pictures? My mother waved her hand dismissively. Oh, Elena's here somewhere. But you know she's not really part of Derek's world. Different paths in life. She's more of a supportive presence. Background family. Background family, the friend repeated, looking uncomfortable. You know what I mean. Some family members are leaders, achievers. Others are just there. Elena's the just there type. I'd heard enough. It was 9 p.m. Exactly 3 hours since I'd arrived. Exactly 3 hours since Derek had handed me that red wristband and explained that security needed to know who didn't belong. I pulled out my phone and sent a text to Thomas. It's time. His response came immediately, on my way up. I walked calmly to the DJ booth and asked him to cut the music. He looked confused but complied. The rooftop went silent except for the sound of confused murmuring. Excuse me, everyone, I said, my voice carrying across the rooftop. I apologize for the interruption. My name is Elena Marsh. Most of you know me as Derek's older sister, the one with the red wristband. Derek's head snapped toward me, his eyes wide. Elena, what are you? I'll just be a moment. I wanted to share something with all of you. You see, when this party was booked 8 months ago, the venue coordinator who handled the reservation didn't mention one important detail to my family. Thomas stepped onto the rooftop, perfectly timed. He walked to my side and handed me a leather folder. This is Thomas Chin, the property manager of Skyline Tower. Thomas, would you like to explain to our guests about the building's ownership? Thomas smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. Certainly, Ms. Marsh. Ladies and gentlemen, the Skyline Tower was purchased 8 months ago by a new owner. That owner is currently attending this evening's event. The murmuring grew louder. I opened the folder and pulled out the property deed, holding it up so people could see the official stamps and seals. I purchased this building on October 15th of last year for $3.1 million in cash. That includes this rooftop venue, the event space on floor 11, all office and retail spaces and all common areas. I am the sole owner of the property you're currently standing on. The silence was absolute. Derek's face had gone completely white. My mother looked like she might faint. My father had frozen with his drink halfway to his mouth. When my parents booked this venue for Derek's graduation party, they paid me, though they didn't know it was me, $87,000 for tonight's event. They also placed a $40,000 deposit for Derek's future wedding reception, which they've been planning enthusiastically. That's $127,000 total, all paid to me over the past 8 months. I could hear someone's phone camera clicking. Multiple someone's. Tonight I was given a red wristband and told that security needed to know who didn't belong here. I was excluded from every family photo, 47 shots total, because I wasn't VIP family. My mother told her friends I was background family, the type that's just there. My brother didn't mention me once in his speech, despite the fact that he's literally celebrating inside a building I own. I turned to look directly at Derek. You told me not to embarrass you. You said I didn't fit with the crowd you were trying to impress. So I've made a decision that I think will help with that problem. Elena, wait. Derek found his voice, but it came out strangled. This party is over. Effective immediately. Everyone has 30 minutes to gather their belongings and exit the building. Thomas, please initiate the venue shutdown. With pleasure, Ms. Marsh. What happened next was pandemonium. My mother rushed toward me, her voice shrill and desperate. Elena, stop this right now. You can't. This is Derek's graduation party. Everyone is here. Everyone was here, I corrected. Now everyone is leaving. You have 29 minutes. Derek was in full panic mode. This is insane. You can't just kick everyone out. What about my guest? My networking contacts? Do you have any idea how this makes me look? Yes, I said calmly. It makes you look like someone who humiliated the owner of the venue. I imagine that won't be great for your professional reputation. My father tried to take control. Now, Elena, I know you're upset, but let's be rational about this. We paid for this venue. We have a contract. You do have a contract, I agreed. Thomas, please explain the relevant clause. Thomas pulled out his tablet. Clause 17, subsection C. The venue reserves the right to terminate any event immediately in cases of discrimination, harassment, or abusive behavior towards staff or ownership. In such cases, all deposits are forfeit and no refunds will be issued. My father's face turned purple. Abusive behavior? We didn't abuse anyone. You created a tiered wristband system designed to publicly humiliate a family member. You excluded me from family photos while telling 114 guests I wasn't VIP family. You called me background family, who's just there. That meets the definition of discriminatory behavior under the contract you signed. This is extortion, my father shouted. This is consequence, I said quietly. You have 27 minutes now. The guests were already moving toward the exits, whispering frantically to each other. I heard phones buzzing with texts and calls as people began spreading the news. Derek's carefully cultivated professional contacts were filing past him, their faces ranging from shocked to disgusted to amused. One man, the Jonathan Ashford who'd gotten such warm treatment during check-in, stopped and looked at Derek. You humiliated your own sister at a venue she owns? He shook his head. Terrible judgment, Derek. Really terrible judgment. He walked away without another word. Derek looked like he might cry. Or vomit. Possibly both. My mother made one last desperate attempt. Elena, please. Think about what you're doing. Derek's future is at stake. His reputation. His career opportunities. You're ruining everything. No, I said. He ruined it himself when he decided a red wristband was an appropriate way to treat his sister. I'm just the venue owner enforcing her policies. Aunt Rachel approached me as she was leaving. She touched my arm gently. Elena, I had no idea about any of this. About what you'd accomplished. I'm so sorry. Thank you, Aunt Rachel. For what it's worth, I think they deserved this. She squeezed my arm and left. The building's security team, my security team, began systematically clearing the rooftop. The caterers packed up the untouched food. The DJ disconnected his equipment. The bartender closed down the premium bar that had barely been used. Within 25 minutes, the rooftop was empty except for Thomas, the cleaning crew, and me. My family was the last to leave. Derek couldn't even look at me. My mother was crying, her perfect makeup ruined. My father was on his phone, presumably calling lawyers who would tell him the contract was ironclad. As they reached the elevator, Derek turned back. I hope you're proud of yourself. I am actually. I'm very proud of what I've built. It's just a shame you never bothered to ask about it. The elevator doors closed on their shocked faces. I stayed at the rooftop for another hour, watching the cleaning crew restore the space to its pristine condition. My phone was buzzing constantly, but I ignored it. When I finally checked at 10:30 p.m., I had 67 missed calls and 143 text messages. From Mom, call me immediately. We need to fix this. Derek is devastated. From Dad, this behavior is unacceptable. We're meeting with lawyers tomorrow. From Derek, you ruined my life. Everyone saw. My career is over because of you. Multiple messages from extended family members, ranging from what happened to, I can't believe what I just witnessed. I blocked my parents and Derek, then sent one group text to the extended family. Tonight's events were the result of years of mistreatment. I will not be discussing this further. Please respect my decision. What I didn't realize until the next morning was how viral the story had become. Multiple someones had recorded my speech and Thomas's announcement. The videos were all over social media. One video from a guest named Jennifer had been viewed 340,000 times with the caption, "I just watched a graduation party get ended because the graduate gave his millionaire sister a not family wristband. She owned the building. He kicked everyone out. This is the greatest revenge I've ever witnessed in person." Another video showed Derek handing me the red wristband, with his dismissive, "security needs to know who's who" comment clearly audible. It had 580,000 views and the comments were brutal. Imagine being this confident while humiliating someone who owns the building. The red wristband energy here is peak entitled behavior. Not family speedrun to "I own your venue" is chef's kiss. This man really said, "Don't look poor," to someone with $3.1 million in property assets. Someone had also found photos my mother had posted to Facebook during the party. The family photos I'd been excluded from. They'd created a side-by-side comparison. Those photos on the left and the video of me holding up my property deed on the right. It had been shared 127,000 times. The hashtag red wristband revenge was trending. The calls and messages didn't stop. For 3 days straight my phone was in constant notification mode. I finally turned it off completely. On day 4 my doorbell rang at 7 a.m. I checked the security camera and saw Derek standing there, looking like he hadn't slept in days. Against my better judgment I opened the door. I didn't invite him in. "What do you want, Derek?" I need to talk to you." His voice was hoarse. "Please. You have 5 minutes. Everyone's talking about it. The videos are everywhere. My classmates, my professors, the companies I interviewed with. Everyone has seen it. 3 job offers were rescinded. One company sent me an email saying they can't employ someone who demonstrates such poor judgment in personal relationships." "I'm sorry to hear that. Are you really?" His voice broke. "You destroyed my reputation. My career. Everything I worked for." "No, Derek. You destroyed your own reputation when you decided to publicly humiliate me with a wristband system. I just owned the building where you chose to do it. It was just a wristband. It wasn't that big a deal. It was a big enough deal for you to create an entire system around it. Big enough to exclude me from 47 family photos. Big enough to tell 114 people I wasn't VIP family." He was crying now. "I didn't mean it like that. I wanted my day to be perfect. I wanted to impress people. You don't understand the pressure." "The pressure of what? Being handed everything? Having your entire education paid for? Getting a party that cost $127,000 thrown in your honor?" "You're right, Derek. I don't understand that pressure. I understand the pressure of building a life while being ignored. Of achieving success while being called background family. Of being told I don't belong at a venue I literally own. Mom and Dad are furious. They're talking about suing you. They can try. The contract is clear. Their lawyers will tell them that. They can't afford to lose the $127,000. Dad's been struggling with his business. They took out a second mortgage to pay for my party and the wedding deposit." There was the truth beneath the anger. "They mortgaged their house for your party? And my master's degree? And the car they bought me? They're in a lot of debt, Elena. And they thought the solution was to spend $127,000 on your graduation party? They wanted me to have every opportunity. They wanted me to succeed. At my expense. Always at my expense." He looked at me with something I'd never seen from him before. Genuine desperation. "Is there any way? Could you refund even part of the money? They're going to lose the house." "No. Elena, please. You made me wear a red wristband that said I didn't belong. You excluded me from family photos. You never once, not once in 29 years, asked about my life, my work, my achievements. And now you want me to bail out the family that treated me like I was invisible. We're still family." "No, Derek. Family doesn't do what you did. Family doesn't require color-coded wristbands to determine who matters. You want to know what's sad? I would have helped you celebrate. I would have been proud of you. I would have been the best sister you could ask for. But you never gave me the chance. You just assumed I was less than you and treated me accordingly. What am I supposed to do now? The same thing I did when I graduated with debt and no help. Figure it out. I closed the door on his shocked face. It's been 6 months since Derek's graduation party ended in spectacular failure. The story has mostly died down online, though occasionally someone still sends me the videos with comments like, "This is legendary," or "You're my hero." According to Aunt Rachel, still my only connection to the family, my parents did lose their house. They're renting a small apartment now and both working multiple jobs to pay off the debt they accumulated trying to make Derek's life perfect. They blame me entirely, which is somehow both predictable and absurd. Derek's job prospects have slowly improved as the story faded from immediate memory, but he took a position making $20,000 less than his original offers. He's also apparently in therapy trying to process the trauma of the graduation party. Aunt Rachel tried to say this with a straight face and couldn't quite manage it. The wedding deposit for his future marriage? Turns out his girlfriend broke up with him 2 weeks after the party. She'd seen the videos and told him she couldn't marry someone who treated family that way. So that $40,000 is just gone. My parents have attempted to reach out several times through various relatives. The message is always some version of, "Don't you think you've punished us enough?" The answer is no. Because I didn't punish them. I simply stopped allowing them to treat me poorly while I funded their lifestyle. As for me, I'm thriving in ways they can't even imagine. My real estate portfolio is now worth $11.4 million. I've acquired 2 more commercial properties and I'm in negotiations for a boutique hotel. The Skyline Tower is more profitable than ever. It turns out the viral story actually increased demand for the venue. People specifically request to book the place from the red wristband video. I've also built something my biological family never gave me: genuine relationships. Thomas and his family have become close friends. I mentor 3 young women in real estate investment, sharing the knowledge I wish someone had shared with me. I have a chosen family of people who value me for who I am, not who they want me to be. Last week I received a letter from Derek. Handwritten. 7 pages long. It started with, "I understand if you never want to speak to me again," and ended with, "I'm sorry I never saw you." The middle 6 pages were a detailed apology. Specific instances from our childhood where he'd been cruel or dismissive, times he'd watched our parents favor him and said nothing, moments where he could have stood up for me and didn't. He acknowledged that the wristband wasn't the problem. It was the culmination of 29 years of treating me like I was less than him. He didn't ask for anything. Didn't beg for money or forgiveness. Just apologized and said he hoped someday I might be willing to talk. I haven't responded yet. I might not ever respond. But I kept the letter. Because here's what I've learned. Revenge isn't about getting even. It's not about making people suffer or proving you're better than them. Real revenge is building a life so successful, so fulfilling, so completely independent of the people who dismissed you that their opinion becomes irrelevant. I'm Elena Marsh. I'm 29 years old. I own $11.4 million in commercial real estate. And I haven't worn a wristband, red or otherwise, that I didn't choose for myself in 6 months. And honestly, I've never been happier. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. Sometimes the best revenge isn't proving people wrong. It's becoming so successful that whether they were right or wrong simply doesn't matter anymore.